your Austin meetup group, and sounds like you have a really great group, and it's a very interesting area, Austin. It's becoming a real big tech hub, as you know, for those who live there. As Leland mentioned, I'm Rich Knaster. I'm a SAFe fellow. I'm also a chief scientist for value stream management, and I'm a principal contributor and author for the Scaled Agile framework. I have been developing versions of the framework since roughly 2013.
Hey,
And yep.
just real quick, you're showing the, don't know what happened. When you tried it earlier, we saw presenter view, but now we're seeing, I mean, we're seeing the actual view. Now we're seeing presenter's view. There we go. That's good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Rich Knaster. I'm a SAFe fellow chief scientist for value stream management. And as I mentioned, I've been working on SAFe for a very long time. Today's talk will be mainly about value stream management. We will touch upon some of the areas where SAFe and value stream management intersect. And in reality, you can apply value stream management to any Agile method that you want to. So I just want to frame the problem a little bit. What's happening today? So what we're seeing is there's a tremendous amount of spend on digital transformation. In fact, IDC says it will reach $6.8 trillion by 2023. And that's awesome that so many organizations are doing that. But the sad truth is that about 70% of those organizations are falling short of their objectives, often with profound consequences to both the organization and the people who have responsibilities for those transformations. And you can see the sources at the bottom of the screen here. So what does this mean? Well, I think the next thing we have to ask ourselves is, why do so many of these transformations fail? And to me, there are three reasons for that. Silos, silos, and silos. And many enterprises are struggling to get the full benefits of their Agile transformations. And the problem, reason why I'm saying silos, 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 is because they cause a lot of issues when we work in a siloed fashion. Even if we're doing Agile, but if we're still managing in projects, we are going to create silos within the project team. So some of the things that I'm seeing happen when we're overly siloed is that we have a very difficult time to align strategy and execution. And teams don't have the visibility they need into what other teams are doing. Our tooling is often siloed and they can't connect. Not enough focus on improving flow. So Agile is great. It has allowed us to be much more adaptable than it has in the past. However, you can be Agile, but still not getting the speed that you need to get. The other thing I'm finding is there's more focus on speed than there is actually on value. And most organizations, whether they're using SAFe or not, are still using projects versus products. And that is a big impediment to getting a faster flow of value, which is what value stream management is all about. So I just want to point out that this talk is about value stream management. Value stream mapping is a different topic. It's a subset of value stream management, but it's not the same. And we'll go into a little bit more in a few moments about exactly what value stream management is. So here, just wanted to give you the benefits first, and then we can talk about what exactly is value stream management. So you're not going to achieve the full benefits of SAFe, or if you're using Discipline Agile or less, or any of the scaling frameworks, if you don't combine it with value stream management, because they really focus on increasing value, increasing flow, accelerating innovation, reducing cost, improving quality, having stable teams. When you are organized in projects, you don't have stable teams typically. When the project is over, the team disbands and they go back to what they were doing before, and then they'll probably be picked up in another project. You also lose a tremendous amount of knowledge every time you have to, disband and form teams again. And also continuous improvement is another big aspect of value stream management. So what's happening today in terms of value stream management? Well, Gartner says that about by 2023, next year, it's coming up quick, 70% of organizations will use value stream management to improve flow in the DevOps pipeline, leading to faster delivery of customer value. That's a pretty bold statement. Although I find that most of these organizations always say 70%. I think it's always a good guess. But let's look at some of the data that we're seeing from the State of the Agile report that was published in 2020. So about 14% of people are expanding the implementation of value stream management. 7% are implementing, not expanding. 20%, 1% currently implementing, and 14% plan to implement in the next 12 months. So that means that we're at about 56% of organizations have begun implementing value stream management and plan to expand it. And there are about 23% of the organizations who are interested, but no near plans to implement. So I believe that a whole bunch of people in that 23% will begin implementing that value stream management in 2023. So I don't think the prediction is all that far off given where we are today. And what that means to you is that the organizations who are going to adopt value stream management along with our agile scaling method are going to be at a strategic advantage from you due to all the benefits we just went over on the prior slide. And that's why I'm mentioning it. I think it's so critical. We really haven't focused enough on flow as we should have and during our agile transformations. So today, every business, whether you realize it or not, is a value delivery system that delivers products and services to their customers. And every organization.
Yeah, so my job title was process engineer.
Can somebody mute that person?
I think one thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find who it is. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So every organization has value streams, but most people don't know they exist or even how the value flows through them. And this gap in knowledge leads organizations to improve one functional silo only to create problems in another. If you ever played that game Whack-A-Mole at Dave & Buster's and you hit one mole, then another one pops up, the one pops up, you keep hitting them and you're going all over the place trying to knock down all the moles. That's what seems to happen when we do continuous improvement in Agile. We're always playing that Whack-A-Mole game. So if you understand how your value streams flow value, and you really know how your organization then serves its customers and how it provides value. But you may be wondering, what the heck is a value stream? And a value stream is simply a series of interconnected steps or processes needed to deliver a product or service to a customer. Value streams also contain the people, the process, the information, and tools that's required to deliver value. And notice here that the value stream starts with a customer need or customer request. That's the trigger to start the value stream. And then what you're seeing here are the steps. And what I'm showing here is an operational value stream, or sometimes I call it a business value stream because people get confused with the word operational value stream. And you're seeing the steps that are needed for somebody to get car insurance. But first they're going to buy a car, and then as they're getting their car, they're also wanting to understand the insurance. And then the end value is that the customer gets covered by insurance so that they can purchase their car. As you know, you can't purchase a car today without having insurance on it. They won't let you drive it off the dealership's lot. And in SAFe, in the upper right corner, you're seeing where development value streams live on the big picture, which is in the portfolio level of SAFe, because a portfolio is a collection of development value streams. So before we go further, what I think is really important to discuss is the fact that people aren't focusing enough on value. And organizations have become really great at delivering features. So, they can do that quickly. However, features don't always equate to value. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And we don't even know whether or not those features are actually providing value. So why are we so obsessed on velocity? How many features can we get done during this time period, whether it's a PI or other time box that you're using in your organization? So my thinking is that you need to stop obsessing on velocity and start focusing on value, because what's really important is getting more value in your organization. So it's less important to get lots of features out. It's much more important to get out the door things which actually move the needle in your business. And quite frankly, we just don't know. It's never been easy to get this data, but it is becoming easier with the concept of value stream management. For example, do you know if your feature is even used? Did anyone find it? How many abandoned transactions happened as a result of them using your feature? Is the customer perceiving that this is a valuable thing? Are you getting business outcomes from the release of that feature? Has it increased your support calls, or has it reduced your support calls? Are you getting enhancement requests and defects? And if you're not, that also is another clue that probably nobody is using your feature. And finally, do you know the efficiency of your DevOps pipeline, and do you know how effective it is in delivering value? And this cartoon is from Comic Agile. I think those guys are really good at showing the anti-patterns that happened in Agile. So let's go over the two types of value streams. The first one we discussed was the operational or business value stream, and that's the one at the top in green. And the operational value streams are the people in the organization. Typically, these are business people, and they sell the products or services that are created by the development value streams. So the development value streams, are very straightforward. They are the people and the steps that are used to create products or services for one or more operational value streams. So in this case, we're selling auto insurance policies to customers through the operational value stream. However, it's the development value streams that create the software that the operational value streams use to interact with their customers and how their customers interact with that insurance policy application. And we often don't understand value streams or see them. And so there's a very good quote from Mike Rother and John Shook in their book, Learning to See. Wherever there is a product or service for a customer, there is a value stream. The challenge lies in seeing it. And typically, it's pretty easy today to understand what an organization's products or services are. You can often find them on their website, look in their annual report. What's more difficult is identifying the value streams, which are providing an internal product or internal service to another group in the company. So now we've gone over a little bit of value stream management. I wanted to talk about what is value stream management. And as I mentioned earlier, companies that have implemented value stream management have seen extraordinary business improvements in car manufacturing, software development, financial and medical industries. Value stream management also promotes the use of systems thinking to look at the whole, not just the parts, because if we optimize only part of a flow, then it's very likely that we can globally de-optimize the overall flow. So VSM is a set of lean principles and practices that optimize the application of people, of process and technology to improve the flow of value continuously from idea all the way through to customer delivery. There are several practices in each of these different three areas that we're going to go through. So I won't read them on this slide, but I just want to kind of prepare your minds for the kinds of things that we're going to see for people, process, and technology. All three parts are absolutely critical when you're doing value stream management, especially the technology today is extremely important. Just like you can't do DevOps without tools. You really can't do value stream management without tools as well. If you want to answer those questions that I posed earlier, how many people are using your new features? What value are they getting from it? What do they think the usability is? You need tools to able to instrument that information and then collect it and then give you insights through a technology dashboard. So the first part of VSM is the people, and it's how we organize people. Instead of organizing people in a project team, we organize people in value streams. And they're virtual organizations, so you don't have to do a reorg to use value stream management. The people can stay and report to the same people they're reporting to now. What's different is that we're going to organize them in a value stream, which is optimally created to deliver a faster flow of value. So for example, we want to have cross-functional agile teams. We want to organize teams around those products and services. And we also want to organize value streams in portfolios. We want to understand where should we be making most of our investments, in which value stream. Should it be in providing car insurance, or are we best providing more investment in our life insurance or some bundled products, etc. If we don't have a portfolio, it's very hard to see which investments are paying off the most and perhaps which ones need a bit of help. So the very first thing is creating those cross-functional agile teams. And I love this quote by Mary and Tom Popendick. They say organizational boundaries can increase costs by 25% or more. They create buffers that slow down response time and interfere with communication. And that is so true. And I think the number of 25% is probably low. It's probably much more than that. Because what you're seeing here, you're seeing business people in one silo, developers in another silo, testers in another silo, and your ops people in another silo. And really, when we talk about DevOps, we want dev and ops being together on the same team instead of kind of fighting each other. So what you're seeing here is a cross-functional agile team, which has business people, developers, testers, operations, and anyone else who's required to develop an end-to-end solution. But when we work in large corporations, we often need to have larger teams. Our applications often go across different functional areas and different systems. So often what we need is we need a team of agile teams. And in SAFe, we call that an agile release train. And the goal of the agile release train is to develop the most amount of functionality with the best quality in the shortest sustainable lead time. And what you're seeing here is we represent these different silos on the agile release trend. So they're part of those cross-functional teams. And instead of having a lot of handoffs and delays between these groups, we're all on the same team. We get aligned to go in the same direction so that we're not fighting each other. We're actually helping each other achieve more value. So another thing that we've learned over a few years is a really good book by Matt Skelton and Manuel Pace. And they've talked about and studied how do you best design your organizations. And so they identified 4 major team types: streamline teams, enabling teams, platform teams, an actuarial business rules and a complex subsystem team. In this case, the example of the complex subsystem team is an actuarial business rules engine. And all the way back to 1967, Melvin Conway, you probably heard this is expressed as Conway's Law, says that organizations that design systems end up producing designs which are copies of their communication structures of these organizations. So what does that mean? It means that the way that you are organized determines how your architecture is created. And that's kind of backwards. We want to create the best possible architecture and then design the teams to work within that architecture so that we're not recreating how we're organized, but we're creating our solutions in the best way that they should be from an architecture standpoint. It's very hard to collaborate in many organizations because the systems that they are using, their design they're very monolithic. They don't have many microservices or APIs. And so they have very brittle connections between the different systems. So it's absolutely critical that you organize in a way which is taking advantage of how you want to be architected. So I'll just quickly go through these team types. A streamlined team, that team produces solutions which go across the entire value stream, those steps that we saw as an example in the auto insurance policy. The enabling teams help the streamlined teams reduce their cognitive load. When you're a developer, there's a lot for you to know. You need to have domain knowledge of the area in which of the business which you're working. You need to have knowledge of the software that you're building and how the application is architected. But if you also have to worry about how do we set up the development environment, how do we set up the test environment, how do we do BDD, behavioral driven development, or test driven development, or any other thing that you don't normally do on a daily basis, it's good to have an enabling team who can take that cognitive load off of you and get things set up so that the developers become consumers of that infrastructure, be consumers of that testing architecture. The complex subsystem team is about wherever you have a PhD that is developing software, you probably have a complex subsystem. And typically these systems are difficult from a mathematical perspective. It requires very deep knowledge of math, statistics, probabilities, as well as the code is typically pretty complex in those situations. So by offloading this to a complicated subsystem team, that reduces the cognitive load on the other teams, and they can use APIs and microservices to access the business rules engine, but they don't have to know how it works. So the next thing in terms of people is we want to organize people in portfolios. And what you're seeing here is ABC Insurance Company, a fictional insurance company, but based on a real scenario. And within that enterprise, they have 4 different portfolios, one for home and auto, personal, recreational, and business. And notice with home and auto, there are several value streams there. There's one for auto insurance, one for motorcycle, condo insurance, homeowners insurance, and renters insurance. And then for personal, you're seeing 3 value streams for medical, dental, and life, and so on. And why is it important that we use portfolio management is that what Morris Chang says here from the CEO of Taiwan Semiconductor, without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. So portfolio management, and in SAFe, we call it lean portfolio management because it is a truly lean process that we use for portfolio management, enables us to tie strategy and execution together and measure how our different value streams are performing. And the value streams that I'm talking about right now are the development value streams, how they're performing from creating new products and services, and are they moving the needle in the business? Is any of the functionality actually delivering real business value? So that's why it's important to organize the value streams in portfolios, so you can then increase or decrease your budgets within the value streams, and you can do that anywhere from 2 times a year to 4 times a year, but you still stay within the overall portfolio's budget. Process is a very important piece of VSM as well. And in order to optimize things with value stream management, there are 3 major things that I advise you to do. One is to embrace the 5 principles of lean thinking. And then in SAFe, we've identified 8 flow accelerators that you can use to further lean out your systems. And then finally, you want to improve flow with value stream management, where we understand the steps within the value stream. How do we create value from a development perspective, as well as understanding how the customer receives value from the company, so we can develop better technology systems that are going to meet the customer's needs. So what are the 5 principles of lean? And this comes from a book by James Womack and Daniel Jones, Lean Thinking. It's been around for quite some time, but I still think it's a very worthwhile read. We need to really not only focus on Agile, but also, combine that with lean thinking. So the 5 things are: you need to, first one, understand what is meant by value in your context. Simply, it's often just, what is the customer willing to pay for your product and service? And will they even buy your product and service? Then you need to understand what value stream sells the product, and what value streams do you need to develop the product. And one of the things that we want to do is to draw a map of how value flows through any of the processes through your systems that delivering those valuable solutions. The next thing we need to do after we understand how value flows is to identify things that are causing interruptions, delays, bottlenecks, impediments to flow. In other words, we want to make flow without interruptions. We want to have that value flow without interruptions. We want the customer to be able to pull value from the producer. In this case, the producer is the development value streams. So as an example, you could be using a Kanban system that allows the business to pull new functionality when they're ready to consume it. We can use things like feature flags so that the business, when they're ready to use a feature, we can turn that feature on. So we can always be deploying to production, but we'll separate the release process so that you can develop on cadence and release on demand. And one of the huge aspects of lean is pursuing perfection. We really need to look at how we can always improve, not just continuously improve, but relentlessly improve, so that we are always looking for ways in which we can do better, produce better products, and produce more higher quality products, and do that more efficiently. That is a huge part of lean thinking. SAFe recently came up with these 8 flow accelerators. And just for full transparency, I worked for Scalar Agile since 2013. And then last year, I left them to go out on my own, but I'm still working with them to help them with their next release of SAFe, which will be happening probably sometime next year. So we've identified these 8 flow accelerators: visualizing and limiting WIP, identifying and addressing bottlenecks, and we want to minimize handoffs and dependencies. In traditional project management, what did we used to do? We used to connect every task with every other task so we can create a critical path. Well, what you really did was you just created a whole bunch of places where it's going to interrupt value. and where we're waiting on another group to do something. We're still going to have some handoffs and dependencies in Agile, but we want to minimize those handoffs, and we want to find ways of breaking dependencies, such as maybe some cases we're having more than one team develop a feature. Do we need to split the work up that way? Is there a better way that we can split up that work? Are we organized in a way which is not optimal, which is we're organized around technology layers? Is our architecture done in such a way that it's causing a lot of dependencies between one system and another? And of course, in today's disruptive world, we need to get faster and faster feedback. Today, it's not the big fish that eats the small fish. It's the fast fish that eats the slow fish. And so what we're going to find is a lot of companies are going to be dropping out of the Fortune 100 over the next few years. They used to be in there for like 20 years, and now it's more like 5 to 7 years. We need to keep our batch sizes small, prevent queues from forming, and this one is a little bit more perhaps esoteric, but it's really important, is optimizing time and zone. And I don't know if any of you here do any writing or you're doing coding. And what happens is you get to the state where you are really in the zone, and all of a sudden everything is really clear and you can get so much work done. But then you're interrupted, and then you try to get back into the zone, and it's not so easy. In fact, when I'm writing books, when I'm in the zone, I will keep writing until I'm too tired. And sometimes I'm up to like 2 o'clock in the morning and then start late the next day, because when I'm in the zone, I can get so much work done. We also need to look at our legacy policies and practices, and that's where managers can really come into play and help us with our Agile transformation by getting rid of those policies and practices which cause us to have interruptions in our flow, and as well as demotivating people. And lastly, with these accelerators, we need to take an hypothesis-driven approach to development, which means we don't assume that we're going to get any of the business benefits. We have a hypothesis that we will get these business benefits, and we have to understand what are the things that we need to prove to ensure that we'll get those benefits sometime in the near future. And when you do hypothesis-driven development, you want to apply customer centricity and design thinking. And I'm really big on feature flags and doing A/B testing and multivariant testing and see what really works with customers. And with feature flags, you can also target different customer segments, different geographies. So it's a very powerful thing if you haven't tried that yet. And there's good software out there for doing feature flags instead of you doing it manually. So within this new guidance on making value flow without interruptions, you can see visually here those 8 things. However, the reason why I'm showing you is that in each of these articles, there's a why does it matter and what to do about it. So the URL you see at the bottom is where you'll see all this great IP about making value flow without interruptions. So another important technique to improve flow is to use something called value stream mapping. And surprisingly, it hasn't caught on as much as I think it should, because this is one of the things that you can do that you can get 100%, 200%, 300% increase in speed by just knowing where are those bottlenecks. Why is it taking so long for things to get done? And you'll often find out it's something simple, such as instead of using a pull system, you're still assigning work to developers. And every time we have to do an assignment, there's a 2-week delay in getting that work to a developer instead of them pulling work. That's just an example of how some of these small things can really add up at big time. I'm not going to go through all these steps on how to do value stream mapping, but I provided some text below each of the steps so you can understand them. It typically takes about 2 to 3 days to map your value stream. This is not a process re-engineering initiative. This is value stream mapping. We're looking at the high level steps. We're looking at things from a 50,000-foot view. We're not talking about process mapping, which is that lower level, at the ground level type of processes. So you often need to do both, but the best thing is to start out with value stream mapping, that higher level view of the mapping. Lastly, you need technology in order to take advantage of the insights from value stream management, is to be able to collect the metrics from all your different systems, from your Agile project management tooling, from your DevOps tooling, to your tools that do build and releases. One of the things I often find is that teams think that they're doing a great job. Oh, this is done. We've marked it on our Kanban system, done. But in reality, it's not done. It's sitting in a queue someplace waiting for operations to deploy it. And you don't get any value from that solution until it's deployed and released into production. So what you're seeing here are some metrics that you can use to understand how things are going in development time. However, we also want to be looking at our business metrics as well. The ultimate value stream management dashboard combines both leading indicators, it combines business metrics, business KPIs such as revenue, market share, units sold, customer lifetime value, as well as how fast are things flowing through the system? What is our flow efficiency? What is our lead time for stories? The other really cool thing that we can start doing today is applying artificial intelligence and machine learning to all this data that we have, because we have so many different types of data coming from many different systems. It's really hard to make sense of that data. So for example, every one of us has a help desk, and those support organizations happen to acquire lots of great information that never quite makes it into a form that developers can understand. Meaning they don't know if this is an isolated problem or is this a big problem. Imagine if artificial intelligence could read through all the support tickets and understand which types of support tickets are the most common. What is the most common problems? And that usually turns out about 20% of your problems cause 80% of the issues. So if we can identify what they are, then we can fix those things and greatly increase customer satisfaction as well. VSM metrics will also help you orchestrate disparate tools and integrate your different tooling so you can have a smooth flow of value through your organization and really know where things are at, not just based upon moving things on a Kanban board, but because the system has told you, yes, this was deployed in production. And by the way, after we deployed it into production, we're seeing a spike in some sales, or maybe we're seeing a spike in performance, meaning the performance is going down. So let's quickly resolve that, whether we have to roll back or we have to fix something forward in production. Let's identify it before our customers even know what's happening. And technology combined with VSM, this is what really provides greatness and a really great strategic advantage over your competitors. And I'm just showing you here some of the measurement domains that SAFe provides, such as your flow metrics from example, TaskTop's Mick Kirsten. He's got a good flow framework. What business outcomes are you achieving? And measuring your competency in the different SAFe aspects using self-assessments, and being able to bring this data together as well to draw a picture of what's happening in your organization. The other thing that we'll do with technology is to produce the metrics that I was discussing. We need to steer with metrics. They help us guide us like a guided missile to our target. Otherwise, it's like just shooting missiles in the air, crossing your fingers, hoping that you'll hit your target. It's much better if you can see what's happening and then steer towards hitting that target. And so you see on the right here some of the metrics. For example, lean portfolio management, using OKRs to see how well you're progressing against your strategic themes, using KPIs to understand how your company is performing from a business perspective. Are we actually meeting our business goals? How efficient are we as a development organization? Well, that's where your flow metrics come in, and also your DORA metrics as well to gauge your DevOps performance. And finally, you also want to see how well your team of teams are predictably delivering value. We want to be predictable organizations so that the business can do their planning. And if your organization is only focusing on output metrics, those are things like velocity, how many features were delivered, how many defects did we fix. Those are output measures, but they don't move the needle in the business. What's really going to move the needle is when those outputs result in outcomes. So we want to try to correlate our outputs to outcomes. And that's where artificial intelligence also comes into play to help you do that correlation, things that you can't see so well with your own naked eye. What we're seeing here is a value stream adoption roadmap. And this roadmap that I created will apply to any SAFe method that you use, whether you're using less, whether you're using discipline Agile, Scrum, Kanban, whatever. The same process steps usually apply. It may not, it's going to have to be tailored for your organization, but these are the major steps that you will go through. And today, I really won't have the time to go through each of these steps, but at least you can see that there is a way to implement value stream management that is repeatable and that it makes sense. And it doesn't always happen sequentially. So I don't want you to be fooled here that this is a totally sequential process. It's not. And where to start, I think that's great advice from John Shook in his book, Learning to See. He says, start somewhere and learn from experience. And that doesn't necessarily matter where you start, but you've got to start someplace. Don't get, don't be prevented from starting because you don't know where to start. But since that question comes up a lot of times, I've come up with these 4 criterion that helps you decide which value stream to target first. So it's often at the intersection of these 4 variables. Where do you have a big challenge or opportunity? Because if you implement value stream management on a really simple scenario, it's not necessarily going to prove anything, and you're not going to convince anyone that this is going to work. But if you do it where you have a big challenge, here's the advantages of that. A, you're going to make good progress to, fixing that big challenge or, taking advantage of that opportunity. And people will see, yes, this will work in my area too. If you already have existing Agile teams, that's a good place to start because they already have the Agile mindset. And a lot of the Agile mindset is also very complementary to Lean. Do you have strong leadership support for implementing value stream management in a particular area of the business? That's often a good place to start because you need both the top-down support and the bottoms-up engagement. Transformations don't work top-down alone or bottoms-up alone. You need them both. And finally, it's often good to start with a highly visible value stream. That is where there's a product or service that you're selling to a customer. You can also start with some internal processes, like I was working with a tech vendor in Europe, and they have processes for idea to market, market to order, and order to cash. Those are a bit more complex to start with than wherever you have a particular product. And obviously, we're going to get more benefits from external value streams where we have external products. So if you want to learn more about value stream management, I have recently published a ebook on value stream management for the digital age. And if you will email me, I will send you the PDF right away, and I will be automating that process at some point so I can have my own DevOps process. So when you send an email to that address, it's going to send you the ebook immediately, but I'm not quite there yet. And now we have time for some Q&A, and I see there's a lot of things going on in chat. I don't know if those are questions or not. But I guess we'll just open up the lines, and please feel free to go off mute and ask your questions.
Can you go back one slide so I can get the email address, please?
Absolutely. It's about 80 pages right now, and I'm looking to add to that and publish it as a book that's in print and Kindle as well. So what questions do you have from the presentation?
So I guess I can start. Thank you for excellent presentation and differentiating between speed and value. Because a lot of people keep talking about speed and going faster and faster, and there is not enough consideration that does going faster and faster provide value.
Right.
I always use example that, when we are driving, we don't go faster and faster when we are taking off ramp and going to turn around. But slowing down gives more value and gets us there faster than just going faster and faster.
Right.
So I have a question, but another comment is I also realize that because focusing on value, I think will help create a good feedback system or sense and response system in the whole system that can be very valuable. And the question I have is, do you think that Agile members need to learn different strategies, or they need to have different tools to look at things from a value standpoint? Or do you think that they are able to do that right now just by?
Sure, that's a great question. So, can you do this now? And yes, without those additional tools, I believe that you can do that, because art is always about, Agile is about the art of the possible. So we can always, when you want to do something, you can find some way to do it, but it necessarily won't be efficient. So that's why I believe that the tooling that we're starting to see out, that's being sold by vendors is a good start on it, but they're not quite there yet. But having value stream management tools, which can take in data from all these disparate tools and help you make sense of that information, able to have a picture in your head, is really important. That said, for example, if you use feature flag software, then you can have a better way to experiment with turning things on and off in different markets, and having different versions of that same feature, because what you do in Europe may not work so well in South America. So I think that you can instrument some of the stuff yourself, but to be very successful in it, just like in DevOps, I mean, it's really hard to have a continuous delivery pipeline if you don't have it automated. And unless you have a system to take data in and then analyze it, it's going to be difficult too. And I've seen some companies where they have created their own data warehouses. They did this themselves, but I think it's probably a better value proposition to actually buy systems out there that are being maintained by a vendor. So I think you can do some of it, but I think it's really going to require the marketplace to provide the tooling that's needed to get this done.
Thank you.
I think Melanie was raising her hand.
Hey, Richard, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Richard was my SPC teacher.
Okay.
So the question that I have is that for an organization that's very new to overall transformation, that did not take the time to look at value streams for their first launch, how do you start to convince them to go back and re-examine now that we've, a few months in and they're finding all these challenges, and those challenges aren't evidence enough for them to really take the 2 days or the 3 days to, sit down in a room and figure it out?
Yeah, so I think that there are probably some metrics that you can get from your existing systems, even though they're not integrated. Melanie, so as an example, just understanding the lead time to get a feature done or a story done, or have the teams, even if they were, and we're not in person anymore, but for you in person, I would say, take a Post-it note, and every time you interrupt it, put it in the fishbowl. And all of a sudden you see your fishbowl is like giant and it's very visual. But there are
Yeah.
other ways that we can do that today electronically to get the same effect. So
Mhm.
I think we just have to find lighter ways of getting this information. And the good news about value stream management is you don't have to restart your transformation. You just look at where you are today and figure out, where do we need to get to? And when you do value stream mapping, doing it for 2 or 3 days, I think most leaders will say that they are okay with that as long as they know what is going to be the result of this. And when you show them some examples, of getting anywhere from a 50% to 300% increase in speed, and more importantly, that now we're more focusing on value than before. I think everyone intuitively knows that we produce a lot of crap. We didn't think we were producing crap, but it turned out not to be what the customer wanted. So my definition of that, if it's not what the customer wanted, it's crap, right? Even though it may be good quality, really well architected, but if you're not getting the value from it, then why are we doing it? So I would rather see teams develop less things, but get more value from the things that we do release. I think most developers really don't have that connection with the customer and really understanding the problems that the customer has. And so therefore, design thinking, customer centricity is very important, and get them interested in the customer's problems. Because once developers get interested in the customer's problems, they want to solve them. It's developers really hate testers and other people, they really hate to see people in pain. And when they can eliminate that pain, it makes a big difference. So
Yeah.
to me, that would be my advice.
Thank you.
Sure. And it was a pleasure having you in my class, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
All right. I think we're at time. I mean, I don't mind sticking around if others have questions, but I do want to recognize that we're at our time.
Yeah, I can stick around for a few more minutes if people want to, as
Okay.
well.
And if not, thank you. It was a great session today. Saw some feedback even in the chat. People really loved the session. So I definitely enjoyed it and was nodding my head a lot.
Hands up. There is a hands up by Jeff.
There's one hand up by Jeff as well but okay, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm always the troublemaker. I could probably ask
You
questions
are.
for the next 10 minutes. The expectation of correlation, value and productivity is kind of interesting, and I definitely agree that we need to be delivering outcomes, not just outputs. And at the same time, there are parts of SAFe that are focused on choosing the right product. And this has always been true in Agile. The right product is not the same as doing the product right. The technical practices, quality, and so on, you can do a fantastic job at delivering exactly the wrong thing. So doing the hypothesis, the design thinking, the the lean startup, mindset, and so on. I feel like those are separable. The portfolio stuff. We're actively working on all of these threads, and looking at multiple horizons on the portfolio as well. And I guess that all boils down to a statement. I don't know that you'll necessarily find a correlation. One of the things that Mick Kierson talks about in his book, he only touches on it a little bit, although referring to the auto manufacturer, he talks about value stream networks. Now, when you look at SAFe kind of expects that you have dedicated, individuals, dedicated system engineers, and so on. But in somewhat large organizations, you don't necessarily have that. You don't have an idealized singular value stream. You have shared services, and I can see, the value stream networks bubbling up. In fact, we're having to deal with them all the time.
Yes. So just to address one thing.
Go ahead.
So I'm not saying there's a correlation between value and efficiency. My point was that we're more obsessed with the efficiency and getting more story points done than we are focusing on value. Where I think we can start correlating is we've released this functionality into production. What did it do for the business? So
Right.
That's where we can use regular metrics, plus if we can start using artificial intelligence to say, okay, we implemented this feature and it had effect on these 5 things. So we're seeing an increase in units sold. We're seeing an increase in customer satisfaction from our support organization, because we can read thousands of records and make the insights for them. And,
Right.
and
Yeah, we're kind of working that in too, that at the end of the day, a lot of organizations are just pushing things out the door and they don't necessarily have any instrumentation, whatever their goals were. Was it conversion? Was it revenue? Was it new customers, more sales? The feedback loop is not there on value, and NPS scores don't cut it as far as I'm concerned. One of the things that, you referred to learning to see, I feel like, although it's in the name, the focus on value, at least how value stream mapping, value stream management, I've been doing this stuff for about 3 decades. It's still, to some degree, a focus on flow. Value is what you establish, when you come up with what you're going to build. One of the things that there was a question asked, how do you deal with an organization that doesn't necessarily have time to do all that training? What I've done here is create executive briefs that go down into various aspects, including throughput accounting. A localized change or local optimization doesn't necessarily help anything at all.
Right, that's the systems thinking that we
Right.
use. But I wanted to just one thing that you said about, about value. And that is, we're really not understanding what value that we are delivering, because we're not measuring it. And oftentimes we don't know how to measure it. So
Yeah.
we can't use lagging indicators. So we have to use a combination of leading indicators, like key results. Even if you're not using
Right.
OKRs, you can still have key results for a benefit hypothesis that you may have. So you need to use a combination of leading indicators as well as other metrics from the business, like renewal rates, our sales, our lifetime customer value. Those are your lagging indicators. That's going to take a long time to get. So you kind of have to use both. And the reason why
Right.
I'm stressing portfolio management here as part of VSM, and this is my unique viewpoint, is that if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. And that's what lean portfolio management is about. It's about understanding the strategy in your organization. What are the unique differentiators that is going to move the needle in your business? And so what I'm seeing all the time, it's fire, aim, ready. Instead of really looking at a purposeful journey, where are we today? Where do we want to be tomorrow? And then figuring out how are we going to get from our current state to our future state, which means the business really needs to be involved in that. IT or R&D, necessarily can't do that on their own. And so that's where we need to get people interested in what the heck the customer is doing and what their problems. They need to fall in love with the problems.
I just lean towards separating the two, what to deliver and then how are kind of two different things. Value stream management tends to focus on one of the things that I pull from the manufacturing world, and people don't understand why. You will never go any faster than the required activity, in your value stream. One of the things that Lean and Toyota talk about, they're the 7 or 8 wastes, but there's also unevenness. If you don't manage activities to be smaller than your expected flow rate, you won't flow any faster than that constraint, right?
Yeah,
and it's theory of constraints, but it's also something that people don't understand and something that you can actually design around. Gary Groover talks about it in a few of his books, where using a lot of parallelization, using Agile and DevOps engineering practices, he turned weeks and months into 24 hours. Now, it wasn't non-trivial what they ended up doing, but if you want to talk about, if you want to refer to like the Dora metrics, oh my God, what a change. It still was, in my mind, more value stream management versus the choice of what we're actually going to build.
Yeah, and I understand separating the what and how, and I'm not necessarily saying that they have to be the same group that's doing that, because the people who are involved in lean portfolio management are often very different than the people who are developing the solution. However, I do believe that strategy, for the most part, is a top-down thing.
Oh yeah.
However, we can use some techniques to get the wisdom of the crowd. I don't know if you ever heard of participatory budgeting, where we can get feedback on what do the people think that we should be focusing on our time on and why, so that we can get the collective intelligence of everyone in the portfolio about what we should be working on, and for them also to hear from the executives why they think that we should work on these particular initiatives, because people often do not get enthusiastic, or I'm trying to look for the word, really jazzed up about working on something if they don't understand why it's so important. They just think, oh, that's some executive in their ivory tower. So to me, I'm trying to put together a comprehensive view of value stream management that's not limited to just mapping, not limited to just removing waste, but looking at it holistically and understanding how we need to manage our flow, our value together, and so that we can really make a difference. And you can start small, and before you know it, you get a snowball effect of all that improvement together.
So you mentioned TDD and BDD. TDD, it's a developer practice and could have been evolving over time. BDD, if it's done the way it's supposed to be done, is actually a fairly radical change in how a team works, because it's a team job to do example mapping. It's still a test first approach. You get to a point where instead of things slowing down in test, anyone can hit a button and say, run the regressions. the deployments and so on happen kind of on demand. That said, in Japanese, that's not Kaizen anymore to go from how we work today to that approach. That's kind of a revolutionary change. When you look at a value stream, you can improve it. You can also consider other opportunities. Design for manufacturing, or 3P, would have said you don't necessarily need to kind of do a smaller version of waterfall. You can actually change the order of things. Have you seen any interesting cases where that was done?
Can you clarify that when you say what was done?
When they actually went from kind of the traditional analysis and design, then development, then it finally comes to the testing organization, and then essentially having changed their way of working to put the tests first, even the functional tests and so on. That they really did BDD.
Right. So that's definitely a smaller subset. What I find is most organizations, are doing some form of TDD, but
Right.
in some cases, it's really more like they're doing automated unit testing, but they're not running the test first. And
Yeah.
one of the advantages of running tests first, and I've confirmed this with developers, and even one of my sons who's a software developer, and he always says when he has to write the test first, he tends not to wander off of the requirements and start doing things that he thinks would be cool instead of what the
Yeah.
actual requirements are. BDD, less organizations are using it, but I think it actually does help you produce value faster. And you can't do everything. So you got to pick
Right.
the spots where it's really going to make a difference. And over time, you adopt these practices incrementally. So now it just becomes, well, this is how we do things around here. It's not SAFe, it's not Scrum, it's not Kanban. It's just the way we work here. And that's where you have to have that relentless improvement mindset to always want it to be doing better. And I think when people start getting momentum, they start having fun with winning and getting things done faster and seeing that they're actually making a difference in the business. So momentum builds more momentum is what I find.
Yeah.
With that, I was going to say we're about 15 minutes after.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
I could keep talking all day. I'm in the middle of doing all the stuff I described. So
yeah, this really hit home with what I'm in the middle of as well. So great timing, great topic. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and just an FYI, I'm working on a true value stream network. Right now, nobody has really developed what a value stream network looks like. And so even in Mick's book, he talks about it, but he never shows what one looks like. So
if you look outside software, I think you'll find it. And that's part of why, I've done some manufacturing automation as well as software, job shops that do one-offs, lots of variation, lots of network, value stream networks fanning out and coming together again. It's still a very hard problem to solve, and I'm trying to figure out myself, how to do that well.
Yeah.
Right, and it doesn't need to be done perfect. Doing it well is fine, and it's going to be a journey like anything else that we do.
Yeah.
All right, Leland, back over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say we probably should wrap up because I actually do have a hard stop in just a minute. So, but thank you again, Richard. It was great. Love the topic. Obviously, I think we could go on for a while. Not just with Jeff asking questions. I have a few, but yeah, we're good. And Jeff, you and I still need to get together. We have a lot of the same questions, so that's
Hey, it's safe to go outdoors again. I'm ready.
Okay. I'll send you a message, man. So
okay.
All right,
cool.
but,
Thank you.
All right, again, thank
thanks.
you so much for having me at your meetup group here, and I'd be happy to come back and and talk again. Maybe we can do a follow-up session at some point. in time.
Okay, yeah, we're starting to look at next year's schedule, so I'll be in touch. So,
All right, everyone
All right.
take care and have a great
Thanks.
weekend.
you
You
too.
too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.